Hi, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome to this very rare public live show. This is going to be about the 30-year-old nanny case. This is Olivia Riner. She was a nanny up in New York State taking care of this little baby. This is Olivia. This is little baby, 6 weeks old. And a fire broke out in the house and, shall we say, really close to the baby, and she was arrested, she was tried, and she was found not guilty. And so this show is about this incredibly weird crime, so bizarre, so horrific that the jury felt they couldn't understand that she could do it. And the question here is, could she have done it, or is there a reason why the jury really did have a good idea of this is, she shouldn't have done it. She couldn't have done it. So anyway, that's what it's going to be about. And before I start, I want to mention a couple things. One, this is the most important one. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, Verizon rewired our house for better internet. And since then, I've had 2 of my shows crash in the middle of the show. And I'm very upset. I called Verizon. I cussed them out and used my daughter's name, but things didn't work out. They weren't going to come out and fix things. But it crashed again, and so my daughter called, and maybe she was nicer, and they're coming out tomorrow, but this is tonight. So because I don't trust this, if the show suddenly goes black, give it 2 minutes, and if you don't see anything come back, I am going to cut the show and I'm going to reboot it. And within 10 minutes, I'm going to put up a part 2 for the live show. Come back, just go look on my channel, look for the part 2, click on it and come back. Okay. That's the best I can do. Of the shows that have been killed by Verizon in the middle, I've never had it happen twice in a show. So I'm hoping it won't happen at all. But if it does, I'm going to reboot and put part 2. Just letting you know, because I'm frustrated. All right. So that's the first thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is the reason this is a live show for the public. Generally speaking, all of my live shows are patron only live shows. The reason I do this is because a lot of times when you do things for public, you get a lot of bots, a lot of haters, you get a lot of stuff that's just exhausting. And although you can have super thanks on it, super stickers and all that during a public live show, I find it a little bit uncomfortable for me in general. So I like things a little more controlled and pleasant. So I went to all patron only live shows. So if you enjoy this show and you're just visiting the channel today, please do go below. There's a link to Patreon. For $5 a month, you can support this educational channel. You can come to 8 of my lives, 4 case shows a month, one every weekend, and also the 4 hangouts every month during the week. And be part of our community. So I really like that. It probably has caused my channel not to grow as quickly and also not to make as much money, but I prefer this because I want to have people who are truly interested in criminal profiling and crime scene analysis, and who are, I want that kind of group. But guys, you're here today. It's open to the public because I had to demonetize my own show. This particular show that I'm doing here is, I figured it would be demonetized by YouTube because of the content of this show about this little child. Let's say this in the beginning: a baby and a fire. That's not one of those popular topics for YouTube, and they demonetize your show. In which case, you do a lot of research and a lot of work, and you do the show, and your channel doesn't get any income to survive. So I decided, okay, if I'm going to just go ahead and demonetize it, because I know they will, and I was asked to do this show, and I love to do requests, because especially when they're fascinating. So I wanted to do this, but I thought, okay, I have to demonetize it. I'll make this the one public live show. And maybe in the future, when I have to demonetize shows, I'll make them open to the public, allowing people to help support the channel and also bringing in new people who've never been here. So I want to say that. Let's see, what's the third thing I want to say before I say hello to people? 3, if you've never been here before, what I'm a criminal profiler, and what I do is analyze crime, and I like to teach people how a profiler thinks, take you through the crime, show you how I look at things. I do not tell the story. I give you a short version of it, okay, straight off of Wikipedia. So if you have an issue with that, I'm just using it because it's short and sweet, and at least let you know what it's about. I'm not one of those channels that does 2 hours worth of showing pictures and all the people and telling a big story. It's not my job. If you want to see that, you go someplace else, which is awesome. And also, I'm not one of those criminal profilers or other people who does a 20 or 30-minute show and says, this is what I think. Accept it. I want you to go through the process to see how I go through this and think these things through. So what you get is a very unedited kind of stream of consciousness, how a profiler thinks as I go through the different pieces of evidence and what has happened. And that's the kind of show I do. Not to everybody's liking, not to everybody's taste, but for the people who do want that process and find it educational, you're in the right place. So anyway, I think those are my 3 things. And so I'm going to get started on the case. Oh my goodness. So anyway, we won't demonetize. Wait a minute. We won't demonetize you, Pat. Thank you very much, Molly. I appreciate that tremendously. And it's funny because one of the reasons I felt uncomfortable doing shows with the super stickers stuff, although you can still throw them out, is because I felt like I was a go-go dancer and people were like putting money in my underwear. But Molly, you can put all the money you want in my underwear, and so can the rest of you. But I'm just not used to that. It's just weird for me. But hey, this keeps it going. All right. Oh, that's very nice. Love your videos. I'm glad. And this is, as I say, not everything is everybody's taste. And for different reasons, you might go to different channels. And you should. You want to hear the story of the whole crime and get all the pictures and have it all edited and beautiful, do that. And if you want something short and sweet, there's people, Dr. Grande, he's done in 15 minutes, but he's funny. And okay. So go different places. Just don't go to the grifter channels, the ones that do 50 shows on one case and just show go with all kinds of gossip, and they don't know what the heck they're talking about, and they just make up crap, and they make a fortune. But they're grifters, and so I don't like that. What? Sky Ricky? You're so awesome. Thank you very much. You're just amazing. What do you mean I'm frozen? Don't tell me that. Okay, really? Okay, wait a minute. Now somebody says I'm frozen and I don't see it on this end. Blurry. Are you kidding me? Okay, hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to try something. I'm going to see if this works. Sake. Okay, how about now? Can you see me clearly? What? Can you see me clearly? No, I'm back. Can you see me? On my side, I'm perfectly clear. No moves, but very blurry. Are you kidding me? I'm back. Okay. Still blurry to everybody? I have never experienced this before. Yes, much better. Okay. All right. So clear. All right. I'm going to keep going. I was told by the Verizon technician I could have, it's just not even worth talking about what the Verizon technician of the day said. Okay, everything's good now. Okay, well, keep going then. So annoying. Okay, let's get to the case, and I hope this doesn't happen again. I told the technician he was wrong about what he said, but he told me I wasn't. So I did it his way, and now you see, that's what happened. I fixed it. All right, but that doesn't mean the show won't completely keel over. So let's go for it. All right. I think I said Verizon sucks on my last video, and I will say it again. Verizon sucks. I'm not happy with them. All right, let's get to the case. Thank you, Kung Fu Panda, for the G-string. No, thank you very much. I appreciate you think I have great content, and you don't want to see me in a G-string. Those days are long gone. Like about 40 years long gone. Anyway, here we go. All right, I want to tell you the very short Wikipedia version because that at least gets you to understand the basics of the case. Then I'm going to go into much more. All right, so this is what happened. On December 1st, 1991, 3-month-old, thought she was 6 weeks, but okay. I'm already wrong. 3-month-old Kristie Fischer died in a house fire in Thornwood, New York, in Westchester County. Fisher's family accused the au pair, also known as the nanny. She's actually called an au pair, but over time, nanny sounded better, I think, maybe for the defense, that an au pair is somebody who, I hired an au pair once. She came from France. They weren't babies, they were just older kids, and she wanted to come, and I thought, well, I'm homeschooling and I'm busy, so maybe that would be nice to have somebody help out. And she stayed, and she was great. I didn't expect that she had great skills. She's something like a college student who wanted to make some money. You know what I mean? So, but she was called an au pair, but by the time this thing went on, she became a nanny, which always gives it a much more proper and professional sound. All right. So her name is Olivia Riner. And she's from Switzerland, and the family accused her of killing their baby by arson. They stated that she had not attempted to rescue the baby. So a fire appeared in the home, and she didn't do anything to try to save the baby. All right. And therefore, they believe she was guilty. Riner originated from, it's a name I can't pronounce, Wettingen. I don't know. That's Switzerland, and was a babysitter for a Swiss family for 3 years. So she had experience. And so this helped the defense. It's like, it wasn't like she never took care of a baby before. So she, 3 years, working for somebody else. Then she also worked as a pediatrician's assistant before being hired for a 1-year term to care for the Fischer family through the company EF Au Pair. Now, this is important. EF Au Pair they helped fund the defense because they did not want their company to look like crap, to have their company have au pairs who are killing off children. So she ended up with one heck of a fine attorney. Let's put it that way. Oh my goodness. So I guess I'm supposed to say, thank you, Jennifer. This is so weird because it's like during the show, but hey, thank you, Jennifer. I'm not complaining, but it's unusual for me. But thank you very much. So anyway, let's see. So what happened is this case became this huge international case, a cause célèbre, partly because it almost coincided with the release of this movie called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I don't know how many of you have seen The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And, I'm thinking I should look at this, and I didn't get a chance because I ran out of time, but it was this one, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And the woman in it, when I did see the trailer, and she's applying for the job, and she just seems so sweet and so nice, like the kind of person you would hire. And so this became something which really hit the hearts of women at home who were working and needed somebody to help watch the child while they worked. And in this particular case, let me tell you, basically, with the family, the Fischer family, let me show you the couple. And yet, if you've been to my channel before, I'm trying to see the stupid little pictures that are like this big and trying to remember which one are they. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah, this is the father and mother of Kristie. He was married, had 2 children. They were adults by this time, but they both lived in the home. He remarried after his, and I'm not sure what happened. It's like, he's not a widower. I think they got divorced, but the kids stayed with him. So I'm not going to get into the whole family history, but after he got divorced, he met this other woman and he married her, and apparently kids liked her. And so she moved into the home, and she got pregnant when she was 40 years old. So this was a very late pregnancy, and very unusual, but obviously she'd been working for many, many years. And as a working mom, she was like, well, I can't just toss my job. So she thought if she got an au pair, this would solve the problem. And many working mothers go through this. We'd say working fathers, but we all know that it sort of ends up on the other side. Who do you get? So my daughter, she's with the police force. And she'd been many years in the police force, had 1 child, 1 daughter, and the same thing. She's like, well, I can't just throw my job away, So I've been working toward, and she's a detective by that point, and she's like, I can't just toss this. What do I do? Well, she managed to get 5 months off, so that was pretty cool. But then what? Luckily, I live next door. So between myself and also her father-in-law, who was like the best babysitter ever, we took care of the baby when she was very small. And then eventually when the baby got older, she looked into somebody a nanny who could come in and give us the breaks, because it was, my God, it's a lot of work taking care of a baby. I took care of 3 of them, but hey, that was like many years ago. So mothers, like, what am I going to do? They have to try to find somebody. And she went, so the mom, Denise, went through the agency, this au pair agency, thinking, well, I'm getting this girl from Switzerland. How sweet can you get? They've approved her. It seems like a great thing. But this movie, coming out at the same time, pretty much as a trial, right around then, like, it really, like, don't watch who you hire, because they'll kill your kid. And so it inflamed a lot of stuff. And we don't realize how juries get inflamed by what's out there. And don't ever tell me that juries have no clue. Oh, no, I know nothing about that movie. No, I know nothing about this. I never saw that. I live under a rock. No, they don't. They lie. They lie. And they stay on the jury. And so my opinion of juries, I might as well say it again for all of you who do not know me, 12 people off a bus stop. Maybe 12 well-meaning people. Maybe 12 people who want to do this civic duty. But 12 people off a bus stop. Zero training in crime scene analysis, 0 training in profiling, 0 training in the law, 0 training in anything. They're just 12 people off a bus stop. And I don't think anybody would choose 12 people off a bus stop to determine how they should fix their roof of their house if they're not roofers, or how they should fix a car if they're not mechanics. But for life and death, we pick 12 people off a bus stop. And I can't blame the jury. I never blame the jury. Please understand this. It's not their fault. It's just that, my God, they've been putting in a position where they, with no training, are then being set upon by attorneys with much training and all those experts they bring in to tell them what they should believe, but they say opposite things. And then people with no training are supposed to figure out who's not a liar. It's ludicrous. So I'm for a professional jury system, but I'm not going there. So anyway, although I do, but all right. So anyway, this film came out, and that was like, whoa, everybody's like, oh my God, what about this? So apparently they start writing in the media. They wrote that this case was compared to the film, and it frightened working mothers everywhere. And so that was a problem. All right. The basic incident, I'm going to give you a basic incident because I'm going to go through the whole crime scene. A fire started in 3 separate places in the Fischer home: in Riner's room, in Kristie's room, and one, and I can't talk. And in the room belonging to Leah, who is Kristie's half sister. She's the adult daughter. Okay. And she lived there. And so her room was there. I'm going to show you pictures of the house. The prosecutor, George Bolin, accused Riner of gathering accelerants, because there were accelerants in the home. By the way, there were different places which had accelerants. And there were also matchbook cases that were used. Everything appeared to come from the scene, although the defense will say not so. Or maybe so, but hey, somebody else. She gathered accelerants and put paint thinner. This is what gets you demonetized really quickly. Put paint thinner on the baby. Even I read that and said, I should have done a trigger warning. Yeah. The prosecution claimed she actually put paint thinner on the baby and lit the baby up. Authorities charged Riner with second-degree murder, which is hard to believe because that would be first-degree, but they were trying to lower it down so that maybe the jury would go along with it, and first-degree arson. Now, the trial and the verdict. Let me tell you this, and I'm going to go to the analysis. Riner's agency. This is where she lucked out. We all know that you get off. You're more likely to get off if you have a really great attorney. And if you're a poor schmuck with no money, you get somebody. And that somebody is like, I have 30 minutes, and you get screwed. That's the way it works. And that is not a proper justice system. When justice can be bought, it's not a proper justice system. Just saying. All right. So Riner's agency hired lawyer Lori Brevetti. Let me see if I got a picture of Laura Brevetti. Hold on a second. No, that's Olivia and her mother. That's Olivia and her mother. Okay, I'm trying to find Brevetti. Oh, here we go. Laura Brevetti. She is the one, and she was a very good defense attorney. If I committed a crime or didn't commit a crime, I would want her. I couldn't afford her, and I don't know that I would have any group or some kind of whatever supporting me, paying for her. I'd probably get the schmuck, that doesn't. The guy who's like, I've been working as a defense attorney for 1 hour. That's who I get. But anyway, so they hired her, Laura Brevetti. They hired her 1 month prior to what? Fisher's death. She was already working for the agency. Well, I didn't even know that. So see, Wikipedia has interesting stuff. Anyway, she became Riner's attorney. Riner's trial began on June 2nd, 1992. The authorities had, now this is where it gets interesting on Wikipedia. Wikipedia goes with whatever everybody believes. The authorities had insufficient physical evidence to show that Riner had caused the fire. I'll get into that. Brevetti stated that the police had botched the investigation. This is a normal defense move. The crime scene was not secured and was quickly returned to the homeowners. Police officers, without being specifically tasked to investigate the scene and gather evidence, and craftsmen were able to enter the rooms without hindrance. So this is, again, defense tactic, where you say the police screwed it all up. A day after the fire, Leah, okay, let's look at Leah. Okay, Leah is here on the right. That is Leah Fischer. She is the daughter and the half-sister of Kristie. Okay, and she had the room in the house, and the room in her house is one of the things that got her off. Okay, so a day after the fire, Leah, Kristie's adult half-sister, and her boyfriend John Gallagher. Okay, let's go back there. John Gallagher is on the left. That's her boyfriend. He becomes the defense's. Basically, they're saying he committed the crime, and you're not going to believe how this all played out. This is where I lose my mind. This is how it all played out, but I'll get to it. I'm going to keep you in suspense. All right. They were recorded in a video searching through Leah's scorched belongings during and shortly after the incident. The police did not properly. The recorded thing is there was a recording that after this all happened, Leah's room got completely burned up, and supposedly afterwards there was this recording with very bad sound. And John Gallagher supposedly said something to the effect of, well, when we get to your house, we can have another barbecue or something like that. And she went, ha, ha, ha. Now, this made it look like they could care less that she died in the fire. However, first of all, the recording was unclear, and the whole thing is questionable. And secondly, one of the things Leah said when she was going through her room, she pulled things down from the closet. And I forgot, I don't know if it was her mother, no, it was stepmother. I don't know who was with her, actually. But she said, what's that stuff? Because she was pulling down all this burnt crap. She goes, what is that stuff? She goes, well, those were Christmas presents. I guess it isn't always a good thing to shop early. And then she broke into laughter. Well, I broke into laughter. I thought it was pretty funny. Sometimes laughter is not that you don't care. It's that you're hysterical. You think it's like people at a funeral. I always remember the one statement I heard from a funeral. I wasn't there. I don't know where I heard this from, but there was a family at a funeral, and they were all sitting in the front row because the loved one had died. And the pastor or whoever was doing the funeral said, "Now, please, let's stand upon our feet." And one of the persons in the front row leaned over to the other person and said, "What else are we going to stand upon?" And the whole row just broke out hysterically and couldn't stop laughing. You know how when you're a teenager, you can't stop laughing? You know how sometimes I'm on this show and I say something stupid, I can't stop laughing? It's something to do with the whole pressure situation, emotion. People laugh in the worst circumstances. That does not mean they're guilty of anything. I just want to point that out. All right. So anyway, we also claimed her interrogation was marred by language difficulties, that she didn't know the word for lawyer. And she didn't understand distances, and the recording of the interrogation was poor quality, so blah, blah, blah. But only a number of days did the investigators try to gather fingerprints, and they also said that they overlooked pieces of evidence. Bravetti also explained that the police did not consider other possible suspects in the crime. Basically, John Gallagher. That's the sister's boyfriend. I'm going to get into exactly why they could hone in on him and what was done to this poor man. It's quite unbelievable. So anyway, they didn't say, well, they didn't look for other suspects because she was home alone. She was home alone with the baby. That's what she was doing. She was taking care of the baby for the day. The mother was at work. The dad was away. The dad did stop in like a little bit before this fire started. Like I forgot how long before, but he stopped in and said hello. And then he went on his way back to work. She was home alone with the baby when the fire broke out. But the defense will tell you that's not exactly true. Okay, so we'll get to that. So anyway, George Boland, that's the prosecutor, said that Olivia Riner did not notice any other person except the baby in the house, and that there was nobody else would have come in, and she would have seen somebody else. But on the other side of it, the defense said, hey, she wasn't necessarily, there is a way to get into the house without her noticing. So we'll get into that. The jury of 7 men and 5 women ruled that Riner was not guilty after 1 day of deliberation. Some jurors stated that the prosecution never provided a motive, and boy, am I going to give you the motive later, for Riner committing the crime. And to understand the motive, I can't blame the jury in this. To understand motive, you have to understand psychopathy. You have to understand someone who is not you, someone who is not normal. And then you can understand motive. But if you don't understand that, you go, well, that's just impossible. There's just no way. So I've just kind of let the cat out of the bag as to who I think is guilty. But hey, I'm going to get into all this. I'm going to see what your feelings are as I go through the crime and explain why I think she was most likely guilty, why John Gallagher was not involved in the crime, and that she did have a motive. But this will all play out. Okay, so anyway, she was found not guilty because they never provided a motive. And they also came up with an alternative suspect, which is the perfect thing for a defense. Alternative suspect, and we can't understand why she would have done it. So, hey, the judge, Donald Silverman, stated his agreement with the result. Okay. Fisher's family maintained their belief that Riner was guilty. Authorities never filed any criminal charges related to this case against anyone else. All right. That's the basics. Okay. Again, folks who think I use Wikipedia as a research tool, I do not. I use it as a basic outline because I'm too lazy to type everything down. Because we don't make enough on YouTube to give 10 hours to that. All right. So let me check on some of your comments, and then I'm going to get with good luck with looking through this chat. Well, that is why I, generally speaking, have patron-only chats, because it's a little more controllable and it gets very, very difficult. Okay, but I will black bottoms whoever you are because you're not a patron. What possible motive could a person have for that horrific, unthinkable crime? And here's, okay, guess you have to try to get, okay, this is a good question. I'm going to get into that because there are only 2 suspects, okay? Olivia, which is the prosecution suspect, and John, the sister's boyfriend, his motive. So is this woman more likely to have a motive than the boyfriend? So somebody has to have a motive, but what's happened is the defense, all they have to do is make you go, I don't know. And that's good enough. So yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to get to the motive in that because I think it's fascinating. Not wanting children anymore. Okay. New life with a person who doesn't want kids. Okay. I don't know that has anything to do with this particular issue because, but okay. Oh, you read the book. Oh, okay. You read the book. Okay. Then, and again, just to let you know, the book is, there's a couple of books on the case, but this one is actually available quickly. It's Joyce. I forgot her name. I've got it right here. Hold on a second. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'm suffering from technology issues. Hold on a second. Okay. This is the book. I'm going to read you some things from this book. This is Joyce Eggington's book. She thought that Olivia was innocent when she started writing the book. That is not the way she felt at the end. All right. So, I'm going to look at a couple more comments. I'm going to get to the scene of the crime. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to say something to make. It's hard to go through the comments. People don't realize how difficult it is, which is why I usually do it patron only. But okay, let's go to the crime scene. All right. So I want to show you the house. Okay. Let me show you the house. The house looks like this. This is a house that has 2 floors. It's kind of, man, I remember this. I remember the house just like this next to me when I was growing up. And I think that was in the 1960s. I remember the people. They were called, the girls were Norma and Yana, and they lived in this modern house next to our colonial. We thought it was appalling, but interesting. Anyway, so it's a 2-floor house. Now, why is this important? All right, I want you to take a look at this picture. You see the bottom window? That is the baby's room. Okay, that's important to know. That's the baby's room. All right, now, this is the layout of the bottom floor of the house. Now, if you look back at the top floor, you'll notice that that's the fancy part. That's where the true living room is. I think the parents were up there. I think the son might have been up there, but they didn't have a second floor picture. But this is where you sit in the living room and you look out at the gorgeous scenery, and you have the best bedrooms. And then down below, you have the other bedrooms, but they all had windows, but you all know how that's kind of like a half basement thing. You know what I mean? You still sort of feel like you're in a basement, but you got some windows. And then they had a family room down there where, you hang out and you play games, and, baby gets old as baby runs around. All right. So that's the basic layout of the house. Baby's bedroom window is on the ground floor. That's important. Now let's look at the ground floor. All right. So this is family room, which is, I don't know what they have in there because that's all I know. All right. So you see Olivia's room. Olivia's room is on the right side. And right across from Olivia's room is the nursery. Pay attention to the 2 doors. Okay. The door from Olivia's room left open and the door from the baby's room left open allows Olivia to sit in her room at the desk. The desk is a thing on the bottom of her room. She can sit at her desk and she can glance over there. She can sit on her bed. She can glance over into the baby's room. And if the baby is sitting in one of those little, car seats or top, what do you call those things? I haven't had a baby in a long time. One of those little fun seats that kids sit in. She can place that child in the middle of the room, facing the door, and she can be in her room and look over and see the baby, Kristie, in that little baby thing. Somebody tell me what the baby thing is called. I'm just blanking. What is that thing called? They play with all the little, there's not really a car seat, but you play with all the little toys and crap. Somebody tell me the name of that. What is that called? Not a bouncy. It's not a bouncy chair. It's a little seat kids sit in. They fall asleep in them, and not a bouncy. I don't think it's a bouncy chair. It's like everybody thinks it's a bouncy chair. A walker, a bouncer, whatever it is. But it's something the baby sits in. You stuff them in it. Throw the baby through the window. It's not a swing. Oh my God, I forgot the name of it. Wait a minute. See, hold on a second, folks. Okay. This is where Pat Brown goes to the book and says, what the hell was she sitting in? What's it called? It has a name. How do I not know the name of that thing? It's been so many years. I don't know. Okay. Kristie. I don't know. Now that's an infant jungle gym. Okay. She had one of those, but then what is that thing called? It's driving me nuts now. Okay. Okay. This is what the book says. Bill at 2:45 p.m. Okay, so Olivia was home with the baby during the day. Bill, which is the dad, came home at 2:45 p.m. And he just stopped by because he's close by. He wanted to stop in, see the baby, go back to work. Stopping by the nursery, he saw Kristie peacefully asleep, strapped into the reclining infant seat where she often napped in the daytime. No, they're calling it infant seat. I don't know. All right. One of those things. Anyway, you put the kid in it and you can rock it a little bit and it has little things hanging there and they can whack at them, and they fall asleep. And the advantage is, of course, if you're looking at the room here, you see where the crib is up in the nursery? The crib is out of sight. So in theory, you can put the baby in the crib too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I guess sometimes if she fell asleep in the little thing that I don't know actually what it is, you put that in front of the door, on the floor, on the rug, and then Olivia can sit in her room and glance over and see if the baby's awake, if she's okay, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the picture of that. And if you'll notice up at the right, you will see Leah's room. Okay, that's Leah's room. So you have three places the fire was at: Leah's room up on the right, Olivia's room, but only on the bed, and the nursery, right around where the baby was sitting in the seat, in the infant seat. I'm going to call it an infant seat. Those are the three places. Now, I want you to look at this picture too. This is very important. If you look at the way the house is designed, it is very, very narrow as far as the hallways go. So it's not like everything in the house is so far apart, you wouldn't know what's going on in one place of the house if you were in another place of the house. Here again, we have Olivia's room right across from the nursery, and even Leah's room is pretty close to that. And so everything's close. Now, what Olivia said happened was that she went to, it was like not as nice a day as it could be. So she went to the laundry room to feed the cats. Okay, that's what she claims. She went to the laundry room to feed the cats. And then, all right, I'm trying to find the statement of hers, Olivia's story. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Where did it go? She went to feed the cats in the laundry room, and then she noticed in her room, her bed was on fire. And she was like, oh, that's not good. So she went and got like a fire extinguisher. And meanwhile, she noticed that there seemed to be like, she looked on under the baby's room door, which, by the way, the first time she called, okay, let me step back. She calls for help. All right, nobody's in the home. She calls for help. She says there's a fire in the home. She tries to give directions to the street and all that and so forth. There's a fire in the home. She never once mentions the baby. Like the baby's stuck in the room. The door of the room was locked. It was closed and locked. You know those little things you turn for the bathroom? Not like you actually lock the door, but you turn that thing, and then if you I've done this, you accidentally pull the door shut and crap, you can't get back in. Well, usually you can use things. You can use like a little metal thing, and you stab it in there and you can unlock the door. For me, I can never seem to succeed. So I like unscrew the doorknob and chuck it off and then get in. But in this particular case, the baby's room, the door was not properly put together very well. So that actually the lock wasn't, even if you locked it from the inside and shut the door, it wouldn't hold very well. So it's pretty easy just to bust the door open. Olivia says this. She said she looked at the kid. She had the baby was asleep. Now, mind you, she spent time in her room, oftentimes, supposedly, with a baby in the baby infant seat thing. And she'd do some stuff, and while the baby slept, so she would be able to do whatever she wanted. And then when the baby waked up, she could go pick up the baby. This time, she decided to close the door to the baby's room, apparently accidentally locking it. And she said she went to feed the 4 cats. It was a bad day, so outside. So instead of eating outside, she fed them in the laundry room. You see the cat bowls there. There are 4 cats. She really loved the cats. And then later on, after she fed the cats, she came and noticed this burning spot in her on her bed. And so she's like, oh my God. And then she noticed something under the door of the baby's room, like there's something fire going on in the baby's room. But she never tried to get into the baby's room. She never tried to break the door down. She never pushed it. She knew, she found it locked. She just said, okay, whatever. Now, mind you, remember I showed you the baby, the window is on the first floor. She could have run outside and smashed the window in, but she didn't. She could have tried to at least to break the door down, but she doesn't even say she did. If I know a baby's behind a door, there's a fire in the room, I'm going to try to get into the room. I may fail, but I'm going to try. She didn't try. She didn't try to save the baby, which is why the family thinks she's involved. So she never tried to save the baby. She calls for help. And while she's calling for help and telling them how to get there and so on and so forth, she never mentions the baby. Like, hey, there's a baby burning up in the nursery because I know there's a fire in there. She never said anything. She managed to put the fire out on her bed. But she never mentions the baby. Then she calls the father, tells him, fire, fire. She never mentions the baby then either. It's only later when the police, fire department call her back that she finally, at the end of the conversation, says, the baby in there. It's like, oh, now you tell us. Meanwhile, she didn't tell anybody. And she made no attempt to save the child. So this is a problem. I mean, it's a problem. So let me go on to John now. So poor John. So here's what happens now. So if we go down to John, this is the defense person. So basically the defense is saying, well, she was in the house supposedly alone, but we're not sure that's true. At least she thought she was alone, but doesn't mean she was alone because they didn't always lock their doors. So she was busy putting in the laundry, feeding the cats, and she never realized that somebody snuck into the house, you see. And they use this idea that this was their idea that there were in Leah's room, and that room burned the heck up. I mean, the accelerant around her room just burnt the whole room up. And this is important. Leah's room got the worst damage as far as everything Leah ever owned was gone. All her clothes, all her childhood memories, everything was gone. The next terrible thing, the first terrible thing, I'm talking about how much damage was done to the room. Leah's room got the most damage. The baby's room didn't get as much damage, but the accelerant was poured around the baby and on the baby infant seat and on the baby. So the target was clearly the baby, because if you just wanted to burn up Leah's crap, you wouldn't bother with going into the nursery and killing a baby. And as far as Leah's room goes, Olivia's room goes, all she got was a little teeny burn on her bed, which wasn't even her bed. Her stuff didn't burn up, just her employer's bed that she slept in, and just a little bit of it. Where did she go immediately with a fire extinguisher? To her bed. Okay, so there was this thing in the trial where in Leah's room, let's go back to Leah's room. In Leah's room up there, there's a window. And the firefighters believed that the reason they never even knew that was on fire until later, because the fire didn't act, it was contained in the room. But later on, there was a video that showed a little bit of a gap in the window. So the defense said, well, the gap in the window is where somebody snuck into the house. That's why Olivia never saw them, because look at the house again. That person didn't come through the entrance of that floor. That person didn't walk around where she could see them. They snuck in Leah's room at the top there. And while Olivia was in the laundry room doing laundry and feeding the cats, that person set Leah's room on fire, then snuck down and set the baby's room on fire, and then snuck over to Olivia's room and set Olivia's room on fire. That's why Olivia never saw anything. Okay, so who was this person that did this horrible thing? Well, there's this poor John Gallagher. Now, John Gallagher, his girlfriend got off at, I think it was 5:15. She came back to the house usually about 5:15. He got off at work at 5, and he went to the house to meet his girlfriend, which he did often. And he got there and she wasn't there yet. Her car wasn't there. So he sat in the car and smoked a cigarette. He didn't really want to go in the house because I guess he wasn't too fond of Olivia because he thought she was a little bit weird. And he felt uncomfortable around her and thought, better I just sit out here till Leah gets home. Well, while he was sitting there, he suddenly saw what looked like flames inside the house. So he ran into the house, and now Olivia says, "Oh, it's a fire! It's a fire!" So she's got the fire extinguisher. So he grabs a fire extinguisher and he says, "Did you go in the baby's room?" And he goes to the baby's room. It's locked. He goes, "Why did you lock the door?" So then he slams against the door. The door opens. He goes in there and tries to use a fire extinguisher, and sees the most horrible sight of his life. The baby basically burned up, and that was just like horrific for him, and he was completely freaked out. By the time the dad got there, he was like completely beside himself. It just horrified. But because he entered the house at some point, and the defense found like a 15-minute window of where he wasn't there. I mean, where he couldn't be absolutely sure where he was. So their idea was he got off of work a little earlier than people say, and he arrived 15 minutes earlier than he said, and he snuck in Leah's window because Leah left the window open for him so they could kill her half-sister off and burn up all of Leah's good things, all of her treasures. Yeah, okay, so somehow he snuck in while Olivia's in the laundry room and feeding the cats. He sneaks into the house. It seems like the accelerant and the matches were from the house, but I don't know how much time he would have to get all those things together. So I guess they're going to ignore that issue, and he brought his own. And so then he sneaks to the house and does these things. And why was this used by the defense? Well, apparently, this guy? Whoa, where's my picture? Oh, yeah, that guy. Okay, so, oh my God. So what happened here was a television show was done. Yes, indeed. All right, so let me get to the television show here. I'm trying to find it here. Okay, so a reporter went out there and when all this was going on, tried to get John Gallagher to talk, and came after him, and he didn't want to talk to him because he's like completely freaked out by this whole thing. But somehow Geraldo Rivera got hold of it. Now, I have worked with Geraldo Rivera in my life. I've done television shows with him. All I can say is I'm surprised the Me Too movement hasn't come after him, because somebody once asked me, "Hey, I saw you standing near her. You did a show with Geraldo out on the street. Did he try to grab your butt?" I'm like, "No, there was an elderly woman between us." Not saying he's that kind of guy, but he doesn't have a lot of ethics anymore. Sorry, Geraldo, but when I first started working, sometimes I did your show. I thought it was okay, but I don't know where you went from investigative reporter overseas in the wars to doing the slimy stuff you do now. But anyway, not having a personal opinion. But anyway, someone had made available to Geraldo Rivera 2 of the videos taken by Bruce Johnson, his tape interview with Olivia immediately after arrest, and the tape recording of her frantic call. So they got this, and then they went after the boyfriend. Overnight, there was a perceptible shift in the public opinion. It was the boyfriend who did it. Now, remember Laura Bravetti? She's the really awesome. I'm not going to say she's bad at what that's the fire. That's not what I was looking for. Where's Laura? Where'd she go to? Laura Bravetti. Where'd you go, Laura Bravetti? Okay, hold on. I got to flip through things. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Laura Bravetti. Great defense attorney. What happened? She ends up on a television show. In advance of the trial, Laura Bravetti had expressed her opinions on a national television program, implying that John Gallagher, the boyfriend of the sister, could have been the murderer. Although Bravetti must have concluded otherwise, Bolin, that's the prosecutor, saw this as a flagrant violation of the American Bar Association's Code of Professional Responsibility. A lawyer participating in or associated with a criminal or civil matter shall not make an extrajudicial statement that a reasonable person could expect be disseminated by means of public communications if the lawyer knows or reasonably should know that it will have a substantial likelihood of material prejudicing and I can't pronounce it. A proceeding. A proceeding. Now, that's exactly what she did, and that's exactly why she did it. What we've been seeing over and over in recent years is that defense attorneys go on every television show they can, and they trash everybody they can. They put out alternative suspects to poison a future jury. And that's what happened here. So they put this out that John Gallagher killed the baby, not Olivia. All right. So there's two things here. Could John Gallagher have done it, and what was his motive? And two, could Olivia have done it, and what was her motive? So this is what I'm going to get to now. Analysis of the crime scene and the motive. All right. So let me just check your comments. So there are hundreds of them now. Yes. Judge should have a gag order on the case. This should be happening. But in the U.S., it's outrageous. The prosecution stays silent, and the defense goes on every TV show they can possibly go on. And it's outrageous. It really is. And again, juries do not live under a rock. So chances are, even if they weren't on the jury prior, they will look up everything they can on YouTube to find out about the case and everything. That just, it's ridiculous to think they have no clue, right? So seriously? Okay. We will have to agree to disagree. All right. And I will have to agree with that. We all have different opinions, and that's okay. Yeah. So, okay. You're talking about maybe jealous of their perfect home in life. Maybe, but maybe not. Okay. Feeding the cat should take 2 minutes. All right. On that note, I want to go to, let's say John decided to commit the crime. Let's look again at the house, because this just amuses the hell out of me. It really does. Okay, we're in the house. All right. So what the defense wants us to believe is John, the boyfriend of the sister somehow just tells John she would like to have the baby killed off and all of her crap gone with it. So John is very nice. He brings his own accelerants, which just match what's in the house, and the matches, which just happen to match what's in the house. And he pulls up at a time when he has absolutely zero idea where the heck Olivia is. How would he know Olivia, the baby's in the nursery, and Olivia is not in the nursery? I mean, babies don't pick hours to sleep. Olivia could have been sitting there with a baby in the family room on her lap. Olivia could be taking a walk with the baby. Olivia could be in the bedroom with the baby. Olivia could be in many places with the baby. But he manages to pick just before, just when Olivia he knows she's going to feed the cats in the laundry room. And at that exact moment, he knows she's in the laundry room, the baby's asleep in the nursery, and he's going to be able to get through a window, get down this very narrow hallway, not run into Olivia while he's setting fire to Leah's room, while setting fire to the baby, even going into Olivia's room. He even goes into Olivia's room, pours stuff on her bed, and lights it up. Seriously? This is what you think this guy did? That is the most ludicrous crap I have ever heard. That is like the worst story in the world. And on top of it, what was the motive? You're going to talk about what's her motive? What in the world would John's motive be? So he's dating Leah. Apparently everybody's been getting along. Leah's an adult. She can just leave the house, maybe hook up she's already with John. They could go get an apartment together, whatever. Suddenly she feels a need to kill her little baby sister, just a little baby. What, to get back at her father for marrying a new woman? And then she wants to destroy everything she owns at the same time, so she'll look innocent. What? So, that just makes my head hurt. All right. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. And the whole thing about the window maybe being open, maybe not being open because they saw some video with a blurry crap with fire rolling around. So they wanted to make sure that there was some way that the window was left open so that John could get in the house without going through the family room, without being seen by Olivia. So they had to make this blurry thing prove that that was left open for him. Again, Leah has to be involved then, wanting to kill off her baby sister. I mean, when you talk about defense, stupid stories, that is stupid. But did it work on the jury? Yes. For some freaky reason, because they're not trained, because they're 12 people off a bus stop, they bought this version over, could she be guilty? Now, all right, let's put John over here. Let's go, could she be guilty? All right. Let's look at, she's only been taking care of the baby for 6 weeks. So you would wonder, what the heck? Why would she do such a thing? Now, what was her background? And how was she behaving when she was there? The family said she was odd. She didn't have friends. She just seemed to be she had trouble like reaching out. They thought she was a little bit off, shall we say. And there were some times when they thought she wasn't telling them the truth, or she borrowed the family car and said she was meeting somebody, but that person said she never met them. There were odd things about her, okay? There were. Now, does that mean she's going to kill a baby? Well, no, you wouldn't think so. Now, supposedly she was very good with the baby, but she really liked the cats. So she liked the cats more than the baby. But anyway, they hadn't noted that she was inappropriate with the baby. They had not. So why would she do such a thing if she did it? Now, first of all, I just want to point out the evidence. There's no evidence anyone else was in the house. That's number one, including John. That John climbed through a window and snuck around behind her back is ridiculous. There's no evidence anybody else was in the house. Two, there's no evidence anybody else would have a reason to want to kill the baby by pouring. That person lit the baby on fire. It was the point of the crime was to kill the baby, not to just set a fire. Because this is very important. The baby went up in flames. It's horrific. John suffered horrendous emotional stuff because he saw the baby in that state, because he broke into the room and he saw the baby burning. I mean, poor dude. The motive of the crime was to kill the baby. The other fires were set to confuse, to make it look like that wasn't the purpose. And originally, it was interesting. One of the detective in the case, because of the fire in Olivia's room on her bed, he thought, and it was perfectly reasonable, that maybe she had accidentally harmed the baby. Like she had shook the baby, the things that people do when they're angry, punch the baby or whatever. Didn't mean to kill it, but she killed it. And when she killed it, she was like, oh, what am I going to do? So she moved the baby and set the fire. Turned out, when they did the autopsy, the baby was 100% alive when the fire started burning the baby up. That's why this is a demonetized video. The whole concept is horrific. Flames coming out of the baby's eyes and everything. The baby was alive when the fire was set, and the fire was set on the baby. The rest were decoys. But the detective couldn't believe it in the beginning, so he just figured she might have made it, just screwed up. That makes more sense. She made a mistake. She hurt the baby died, she didn't know what to do, so she faked this fire. But that's not what happened. The baby was set on fire, okay? So then what's the point of the other two fires? Well, she didn't like Leah. There was an animosity between the two of them. I think she thought Leah had everything and she was just the au pair. I think that fire, which had a lot of fuel put in that room, was meant to harm Leah as well. The little fire on her bed, again, not her bed. It's her employer's bed. And she didn't hurt any of her things. She just had a little fire in her bed. And the reason you do that is you can say, look, me too. Hey, it wasn't just Leah's room that got burned up or the baby that got burned up. Look at me. My bed got burned up too. That is a really poor method that a killer will use to make it look like they are also a victim. So far, there's no evidence of anybody else being in the house, especially John. The fires were set by materials that were available in the house. She was the only person there. The fire was directly on the baby, making the baby the target. Leah the second target. Her room was just a fake. So that's why she was arrested and prosecuted. On top of that, when she called for help, she never even mentioned the baby. She never tried to save the baby's life. She never even tried. Now, I understand she might have thrown herself against the wall, the door. If she had said, I found it was locked, I didn't realize, I pulled the door shut to keep the cats away from the baby, which probably never ever happened before. Because she always said she left the door open so she could see the baby. Well, weren't the cats around then too? So that's a bunch of bull too, that she closed the door so the cats wouldn't bother the baby at that moment. But even so, she didn't even try. I mean, if I knew a baby was in there, I would be trying everything to get in that door. I would be slamming my shoulder into it. I'd be picking up things and trying to ram through it. I'd do anything. I don't give a shit about the little fire on my bed. Like I give a crap. The baby's dying. I would get in there. And if I couldn't get in that way, I said, oh my God, it's the first floor. I'd run around the house and smash the window in. I'd try. She didn't try. She didn't try at all. And then when she called for fire department, she didn't even mention the baby was burning up in a room. She didn't mention that to the fire department. She didn't mention it to the father. Only the third time around, she went, oh yeah, the baby's in there. That's why she became a suspect. It's not because anybody was against her. The detectives were floored by this whole thing. So now we have every evidence that no one else was involved in this crime, that it was her. But now you come down to motive. Why? Why would she do this? All right. I want to show you two things that to me show you how this works. One is a very strange thing. While they were investigating this crime, they came across a book, and the book was written by Patricia Highsmith. I don't know if you remember her. She did The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is a fabulous movie. And I now realize I have to read the book because I really like the movie. And I've seen the two versions of it, the French version and the American version. And I like the French version better, although American version still gotta like, what's his face? I always forget names. Anyway, she wrote these great books, and she wrote this story, and somebody called from I think it was New York Times. They called and said, look, I know this story. And this story was published. There was a book of short stories, and it was published. It was available for sale in Switzerland. In both, they had one side English and one side German. So if you were trying to learn English, this would be a great book to read. It was available in Switzerland. They were never able to prove. It was available in her town, but they were never able to prove she actually bought the book, which is unfortunate. And I don't know that she did, but I'm going to use the book just to show you her mentality. Okay. So in this particular book, I'm not going to read you all the story, but basically the woman in the book is a young woman who's got some serious psychological problems. And she's gotten this job as a governess at a home, a fancy home. And she's a bit on the odd side. And so she said, but she's got this place and this position now, and she loves the position, and she wants to be, she wants them to be amazed by her. She wants to be, the name of the story is The Heroine. She wants to be a heroine. In other words, being a regular person is not enough. Watching children and people say, oh, you're doing a great job, is not enough. It doesn't make you feel good enough. Think of Lucy Letby and the murders in the hospital. She took care of the babies and she got praise, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed to be this level, not this level. Being just normal and good and nice was not enough. She wanted to be amazing because she needed that much extra attention. Okay, high level of malignant narcissism that you have to have people keep telling you you're great, you're great, you're great. So she's taking. So I'm just going to read you this part. So she's with this family, and she finally tells them she's taking great care of the kids, and then she says she even wants to say goodnight to them, make sure they're okay, and the parents are there, and they're like, that's you don't need to do that, like it's a little too much. And then she says, you don't even have to pay me because I like doing this. And they're like, of course we're going to pay you. So it's like there's some weird crap going on with this woman's brain, right? But here's where it gets to. She says, let me read you this part because this is very important. And then I'm going to read you what I think the motive is from her own diary. But here's from the story. So her name is, what is her name? Lucille. Lucille is her name in this story. So she goes back to her room and she says that she thought that nothing she did was enough. Just loyal service was not enough either. Anyone would give that for the money. She was different. Mrs. Christensen had said that. Lucille remembered what else Mrs. Christensen had said. Mr. Christensen and I are both very pleased with you, and she smiled at the memory. She felt wonderfully strong and happy. Only one thing was lacking in her happiness. She had to prove herself in a crisis. She moved nervously around the room. She thought, if only there were a flood. She imagined the water coming higher and higher around the house until it almost rushed into the nursery. She would rescue the children and swim with them to safety. Or if there were an earthquake, she would rush in among the falling walls and pull the children out. Perhaps she would go back for some small thing, one of Nikki's toys, and be killed. Then the Christensens would know how much she loved them, which is not love, that's obsession. Or if there were a fire. Fires were common things. There might be a terrible fire just from the gasoline that was in the garage. She went downstairs to the door that opened into the garage. The gasoline tank was 3 feet high and completely full. Despite its weight, she got it out of the garage and rolled it across the garden, making no noise in the grass. The windows were dark, but even if there had been lights, Lucille would not have stopped. Nor if Mr. Christensen himself had been standing by the fountain, because probably she would not have seen him. She poured some gasoline on the corner of the house, rolled the tank further, poured some more. She went on like this until she reached the far corner. Then she lit a match and walked back the way she had come, touching it against all the wet places. Without looking back, she went to stand by the door of the servant's house to watch. At first, the flames were pale and eager. Then they became yellow with bits of red. Lucille began to relax. She would let the flames grow tall, even to the nursery window, before she rushed in, so that the danger would be at its highest. A smile came to her mouth, and her face was bright in the light of the fire. Anyone seeing her there would certainly have thought her a beautiful young woman. She had lit the fire at 5 places, and now it was creeping up the house like the fingers of a hand, warm and gentle. Lucille smiled, but made herself wait. So she wasn't in a big rush to save the kids, mind you, because this is in her head. She's already done this. Suddenly, this is very similar to mass murderers. They already have the vision and the whole fantasy in their head. They don't care if they're dead at the end of the day because the fantasy is already there before they kill everybody. Suddenly, the gas tank, having grown too warm, exploded with a sound like a huge gun and lit up the whole garden for an instant, as though this was a sign for which she had been waiting. Lucille went confidently forward. And that's the end of the story. We don't know if she actually saved the children. By that time, they were all little suckers were burned up. The detective heard about the story and said, oh my God, this sounds like the story. Did she read this story and want to be the heroine? Was her life too boring? She didn't feel important enough. No matter what she did, she was just the au pair. Not even really a nanny, just the au pair. Did she do this to get attention? That she wanted to be the heroine? Was this her thing? And I will say, I don't think so. Although she could have still read the story and got really good ideas from it, because a lot of times people who are psychopaths, people who want to commit crimes, and I'm not saying she's a psychopath, nor am I saying she committed the crime, because I don't want to get sued, but they will read stuff to get inspired because they're often not that smart about inspiring themselves, coming up with a plan or anything. They take things from other places in life. But I don't think that would be the motive. So you think, what? It could be, she might have used a methodology and got a kick out of it, but I don't think that was the motive. What do I think the motive was? I'm going to read you from her diary. This is her diary. She had a hard time settling in the United States. And then she wrote this. She wrote that she wished to go home. This is very short. She wasn't even in the U.S. very long. She wished to go home, but couldn't, because her father would not accept her failure to fulfill her obligation to stay for a year. Supposedly she cried at night, but didn't want anybody to see this. Let me read it to you again. She wrote that she wished to go home, but couldn't because her father would not accept her failure to fulfill her obligation to stay for a year. What is the one thing that would relieve her of the obligation to stay for the year? I will go to your comments on that. What is the one thing that would get her out of having to take care of the baby for a year? I can only think of one thing. What do you say? I'm going down here now, so I can see what you say. Baby loss. Well, yes. Dead baby. Yes. That's a bye-bye baby. Exactly. If she set a fire in the house and saved the baby, she would be like the heroine. She might be applauded, but she gets stuck taking care of the baby, and she didn't want to be there. But her father, apparently her father was, I don't know why her father would have felt this way. Well, he wouldn't have said, hey, I get it. You don't like living in America has been too hard for you. Come on home, honey. Maybe that was that type of father that would not accept that kind of failure or her willingness to quit. Maybe she'd done this before and he didn't like it. Maybe he's just not a very nice guy. Maybe he was a very controlling, cruel father. I don't know. I don't have that information. But she felt her father would never accept her returning home if she just quit her job. But if the baby is dead, what could she do? Oh my God, a horrible thing happened. A fire took over the house. Even my bed had fire on it, so it wasn't me. And the baby died. So, yeah. Well, yeah, she wouldn't fail her pop. She could go home and be okay. And she won the whole thing out because she went to trial and they found her not guilty and claimed John probably did it. And so not only did she get to go home to Switzerland, but she also got to be, in a weird way, a heroine because now she's not guilty, right? So she had to suffer all that, but when she didn't even do anything wrong. Well, she kind of won out all the way. Pat's not used to super chats. I can't do super chats. Generally speaking, it's so hard to keep. You have to have a moderator and all that kind of stuff, and I can't see all that stuff. That's why I do patron only chats, generally speaking, much more controlled. But no, I have no idea what's in half of the chat. I do not know. Isabella said she didn't try to save the baby. Maybe she got scared of the fire and didn't want to risk to be harmed herself like a true narcissist. You could go with that, but how the heck did the fire get started and why? That's what one of the things defense tried to do is say she was just a wimp. But, even a wimp can try. She didn't try. And she didn't even say to people the baby was in the room for 2 out of 3 calls. Also, by the way, when she was talking with the police, she never asked how the baby was. She never even talked about it. Usually if you were a victim too, and the baby you cared for 6 weeks was burned up in a fire, you'd be a wreck. You'd be a wreck and you go, oh my God. First you ask, how's the baby? Did the baby make it? She never asked once. She just showed no interest whatsoever. Again, was a big red flag to the police. So let's see. So yeah. Oh my God, what? So wait a minute, I got to check this out. Seriously? Whoa. Okay. I did not see this. You're right. I'm not used to super chats. What the heck? Where is this at? Loretta. Okay, I got to go back. I got to go back and find out where this was because you think, my goodness gracious. Loretta, you blow my head off. Wow. Thank you. I can't believe it. You've helped make up for this demonetization thing. Wow, fabulous. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. That's a very generous offer there. Donation, shall I say. And I also want to say use of accelerants means a human did it. Otherwise, those cats will be on the list of suspects too. Thank you for presenting the case. Oh, thank you, Loretta. She was more concerned that the cats don't get burned up than the baby, apparently. So, and none of the cats did die. Isn't that also interesting? Thank you again, Loretta. I'm just blown away. And no, I'm not used to doing super chats because it's hard to see anything come in because it flies by really quickly. And no, I haven't done very many of them. So, but it is. I have to say, it's a very useful method for demonetized stuff. So I may do this in the future, but only when I know I can't do this in the Patreon. So again, if you want to be part of this, normally click on Patreon. This is my great supportive group. But there are some things that get demonetized like this. Or I just beat them to the punch because I knew they were going to demonetize. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah says, Pat loves gangster rap. I do. I don't like what gangster rap's about, but dang, I like gangster rap. I have no idea why, but I do, Sarah. And so we share that. We do share that. It's quite fun. Let's see. Yes. Kathy, you got a point. She was a terrible actress, not even asking about the baby. And she was an odd duck to begin with, but the question always comes down to is a person an odd duck because they're just have a weird, some people are just odd. These days we give everybody a name. We'll say Asperger's, we'll say autism, we'll say this, we'll say that. Back in the day when I was growing up, we just said you're weird. People still say that about me. Although some will say, you have ADHD. Yeah. At least it works for me. Anyway, so she's odd. So is the reason she didn't respond properly or normally because she was just an odd duck? Or is it because she's a psychopath? Well, this is where it's important when you're looking at crimes to look at the evidence of how the crime went down, then the suspects and the behaviors. You look at all of this together. You can't just do one alone. But when you put together that there is just really no other way another human being was in that house but her, that you look at the fire on her bed was a big, big red flag to me, because who is going to bother with, why would they bother with her bed? Let's say Leah and John want to kick off the baby. Why does he just sneak in and burn up the baby room? Okay, why would he then burn up? Oh, then he's going to burn up her room? Why wouldn't he make her look guilty? Because if you don't put the fire on her bed, wouldn't she look more guilty? Like she burned up the other two places, but not her own room. See, so when I see that little burn thing on the bed, I'm like, sounds more like a person who's trying to look like a victim and isn't really a victim. You see how that would go. So, yeah. So you have to look at all of these things together. Did she have a great defense? Well, apparently enough for people who look at a girl this young and can't imagine and can't understand the motive of a person who would do something just because, and this will be the just because. Who kills a baby just because you want to go home and you don't want dad to be mad at you? Who does that? Well, I'll explain to you who does it. A psychopath. Psychopaths do really bizarre things because to them it makes sense. If you are psychopathic, the baby is just a thing. It's a thing. You might enjoy the thing, but it's a thing. Even the cats are things. So if the cat was a problem, you'd probably kill the cat too. But you might think the cat's cute and the baby's cute. Doesn't mean you won't remove the cute thing if the cute thing is in your way. Psychopaths either consider you useful or in the way. One of those two things. And psychopaths can enjoy what other non-psychopaths like. For example, a man gets married and people say, well, I don't understand how he could have killed his wife and children. Because he got married. He was married for 10 years. He had a 8-year-old boy and a 6-year-old boy. How could one day he wake up and kill them all? Well, because he never loved them. Because you think that this guy, because he married and because he had children and because he even was a coach, that he loved his family. That is not true. What he thought was the family was useful. When you get a wife, it proves that you're an okay dude, that you can get a woman. It also gives you cover for the community in case you want to do other things that are not so great. You get sex more often because you don't have to go look for it. So now you get your wife. Then you have a couple kids. They're cute. They're little cute bundles. And as long as your wife is doing the majority of the work, then you have these cute bundles and you show, hey, look, I'm a man. I could have babies. And then the babies grow older and then the babies become annoying because you know how that is. At a certain age, they start talking back. At a certain age, they stop listening to you. And then you're not so amused anymore. And at that point, you just met a girl who's a stripper. And you think to yourself, wow, she's hot. I want to go live a free life with a stripper. That wife of mine and those two kids, they're like really annoying and in the way. And so he kills them. And people are like shocked. How would you just do that just for that reason to go hang out with a stripper? Why don't you just divorce her? Because to a psychopath, it made more sense to kill them. Because then he's free, because then he doesn't have to deal with the divorce and the alimony and the child support and having to see the stupid kids anymore. He just wants to be done with it. Boom. Well, she took this job. She didn't like it. And at some point she goes, I just want to go home. And the only way I can think to go home is, well, if the baby's not here anymore, if something happens to the baby, I can go home. It sounds so hard for people who do not think that way to think that way. Now, again, she's been found not guilty by a court of law. She went back to Switzerland. She's living whatever life she's living. I can't say she's guilty. I can't say she's a psychopath. I can simply say that looking over this crime, I'm having a hard time finding anybody else who could have committed this crime, who had a motive, which I think she did. And I think the jury got it wrong. I do. I do indeed. Let's see. Sorry. I'm having trouble with my little thing here. Yes, they did, but there's still issues over it. I'll get to that on, I think, my hangout on Wednesday. On Thursday. Hangouts on Thursday this week. I'm going to talk about Tupac. I will have to check that out. I'm not sure who that is. What I always try to do is sometimes when people mention things, I try to take quick pictures because I can't remember who everybody's talking about. And by the way, if you do, patrons get a little head start, but if you have something you're interested in me covering, send it over to me, profilerpatbrown@gmail.com, put it in the messages. And I can't always do the cases you wish I could, because a lot of those cases don't have enough information for me to be able to analyze. These are the cases where another channel might do the whole story about, this is a fascinating case, and tell you the whole story. But I have nothing further to say because there's not enough proper information for me to analyze. And I just don't sit there and guess around for no reason. So I leave those stories to certain people to do them. They do them better than me. But when it comes down to a case where it's like this, there was something to analyze. I looked at this and said, it may be 30 years old, but boy, is this interesting. Then I was willing to do the case. So, and I try to put them in lists. And, I always wondered when I started this show whether I'd ever have enough to talk about. Because one of the biggest burnouts for YouTube people is that they can't think of anything to do anymore. I mean, they just get to a point where they just wake up and they're like, oh my God, I have to put out product. I got to put out shows this week and I haven't got a clue. And they just want to go crawl away under a, under a cover and just not get out of bed because they just can't come up with anything. That is not my problem. There's so much. There's so many cases I've never even heard about around the world. They're fascinating. But I do have to distinguish which ones are proper for an educational channel and which ones are just something that another channel who just tells stories would do better with. So I'm a little question. Well, wait a minute. AST says she didn't think she would get away. She didn't think she could be held responsible. They don't think. I think she thought she would get away with it and wouldn't be held responsible. And that is true. A lot of people who exhibit psychopathy think they've done a smart thing. They think it's nobody's going to question it because they don't understand how, quote, normal people act. So therefore, when they do certain things, they don't see the red flags that are going up. And the red flags went up for the police and the red flags went up for the prosecution. I think they had a very good reason for prosecuting her. Just they got a jury that just couldn't believe a young girl like that had any reason to burn up a baby. And, it wasn't even an accident. That was what's so difficult. Even the police had trouble with that. If she would accidentally kill the baby and was trying to cover it up, okay. If she even set the house on fire for some crazy reason, the baby got caught up in it, another thing. But she didn't. She poured the accelerant on the baby. That is about as evil and cold-blooded as you can possibly get. And it's because the baby is a thing and not a being and not something that matters. So what you do is you pour the accelerant on, you start the fire, you close the door. You see the point of the closing of the door? Oh, you lock it too. So you say you can't get in, but you close the door so you don't have to see what's going on in there because, okay, so what? So what? That happened behind that closed door. Oh, well. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They paid for her defense because they did not want her to be found guilty, because then their whole agency would be in trouble. So they got one of the best defense attorneys possible. Money does buy freedom. That's a question. Somebody said Alyssa had a great question. If only I could find Alyssa's great question. Well, let me roll back up. Well, that's the great question. Okay, here we go. I just have one lingering question. Is the half-sister alibied? Absolutely. She was at work. She was at work. She's alibied. The defense was simply saying that what she did was unlock the window and let the window open so that the boyfriend could arrive there before she arrived, go in and sneak into the house. That was the claim. At least that was their, the defense. They don't have to prove anything. They just have to create doubt. And they can create any silly story possible to create doubt. But that's, and the problem is the jury does not have the ability to analyze crime. This is why I keep arguing about. So nobody will let me on the jury. There's no defense attorney who will ever let a criminal profiler on the jury because I can analyze crime. That's why I want a professional jury. I want to see maybe, 5 people, have, you go to profiling school, you learn crime scene analysis, you learn all this stuff, and then you just get picked. You don't get, just whatever. 5 people get chosen out of a lottery system, and you 5 go to this case. So I would be there with 4 other people who had studied this. At least we wouldn't be overly emotional. We wouldn't get fooled by stuff. And when the defense comes up with that stupid story, we go, okay, no. Now we might, on certain cases, still find the person not guilty, even though we believe they did it, if the prosecution didn't put on enough of a case. And of course, they're saying there wasn't anything physically that linked her to the crime. Well, there are circumstantial cases that are strong, and this was a very strong circumstantial case that she should have been found guilty, in my opinion. But such as it goes. Loretta, I'd rather you burn a home down to the ground than fail in your au pair assignment. Yes, because should she be found guilty, how many people would hire any au pairs from the au pair agency? Can you think about that? And they were a big au pair agency. So they were protecting their livelihood, shall we say. They if she went down, they go down with her. So they were willing to pay out for the top attorney in order to get her off. So that's how justice system works. Not about justice, it's about a whole lot of other things. A whole lot of other things. Drew says 3 fires set, and the pair didn't see the person setting the fires around her. That's a lot of fires. Now, if the person had put the accelerant around the outside of the house and set it on fire, that might have been believable. Even for John, who had no reason to want to kill babies. But, even him, he could say he just snuck up outside the house and poured it around the house, and it lit up the house. And, and she didn't realize it was in the baby's bedroom, and she ran out of the house. That would be more believable. But apparently the problem was she wanted to make sure in my opinion, not proven, but the motive would be she wanted the baby dead. That was the target, which is, if the baby wasn't the target, the baby wouldn't have been set on fire specifically. So, but yeah, it's a pretty odd crime for somebody somebody snuck in there, set 3 fires, and burned up the baby. Yeah, hard to believe. And usually one of the things is we often think you're talking about Diane Downs. Usually when you have a mother who gets rid of her kids, there's 2 reasons. One is she wants to go off with her boyfriend. That's a family annihilator. Males do it. They get rid of their wife and children. Women have done that, get rid of the children so they can go off with their boyfriend. The second one is that you have serial killers who kill one child after the other of their own, and it gives them a big cheap thrill every time, they kill the baby, and they get all the attention, and then the funeral and all, poor dear, and then they get to have another baby, and they do the same thing, and that's how they That's how they practice serial homicide. But for somebody just to kill somebody else's kid in this way is fairly unusual. She's not a serial killer. She's a what I call a situational killer. There are those who like Lucy Letby. That's a serial killer. She killed babies in the hospital. That's a serial killer. But when you have a person who just does one horrific crime, that would indicate they're psychopathic, but they're not necessarily serial killers. And you say, well, how does she end up? Why would you call her a situational killer? Well, the point was she's not into just killing babies for the sake of getting a thrill out of each baby she kills. She wanted to get out of a situation, if I'm correct. Drew Peterson. Was he a serial killer? Now, two of his wives ended up, well, one ended up dead. The other one went missing and never found. The first wife said he tried to kill her too. Is he a serial killer? No, he's a situational killer. Why do I say that? Because he wasn't into just killing for the thrill of it, like what woman after woman after woman. The problem is the women became problems. When the women became problems, he wanted to do something about it. He wanted them to go away. So he killed them to get rid of them, but not because he was into necessarily the actual killing itself. So that's a situational killer. Still makes him a psychopath. It still means he can kill more than one person, but it's just a different motive, a motivation. So I'll say it like that. Let's see what else we have to say here. More sex when you're married. Well, the idea there is the concept of that rather than have to keep dating and keep finding somebody. Now there's Tinder, there didn't used to be. But a lot of guys, they'd like to have somebody in-house that was available. Now, that doesn't always work out in the long run. And that could be another reason to kill them off. So you can go and that's true. Because sometimes after a period of time, the sex goes downhill and now the guy's annoyed. Well, I married you so I could have regular sex and now you won't give it to me. But I found this mistress, Chris Watts, and I can have her if you were just not in the way. Okay, bye-bye. That kind of thing. Yes, divorce is expensive. And all the time people say, well, why would you kill rather than divorce? Divorce is expensive. Divorce, especially of children, it is an ongoing thing where you have to deal with your ex for the next, until your kids are 18 at least, if not even further. You have to deal with your ex the entire time the kids are growing up. Then you have to deal with the kids. Still have to deal with them, see them, have visits, have them half and half custody, whatever you're going for. And then you have to pay money out. It's a lifelong thing. You're not free. You're never free. Once you have children and an ex, you're never free. But if you kill them all and don't get caught, you're free. Yeah, that's the way it works. Oh my goodness. So, I would say that's not just midlife crisis. Midlife crisis means you cheat and run away, but it doesn't usually mean, no. So the guy who divorces and doesn't kill his wife for a stripper is not psychopathic, just a midlife crisis. Okay, let me address that. There's a lot of people who cheat because they're dissatisfied. They clearly have maybe a level of narcissism that says, my feelings matter, yours don't as much. People have their reasons and excuses, but it doesn't make them necessarily a psychopath. But they could have some other level of narcissism. It's a continuum. But I think by the time a person kills the wife and children to go off with the stripper, you can't argue the psychopath thing. You're like, okay, you're at that end, like the very end of narcissism. Let's see what else you have to say here. Well, Jill, okay. Circumstantial cases come down to whether there is another reasonable explanation. Casey Anthony, there was never another reasonable explanation, Jill. It was absolutely 100% clear that Casey Anthony got tired of that child, did something to that child, rid herself of that child. There was never another good explanation. The crap that hello, folks. That's Verizon. See, that's Verizon. That's what's been happening to me. It is so frustrating. Suddenly my screen went off, it zizzed around, and there we go. So and now I've proven it. The good thing is I just took a video of this. So when Verizon shows up tomorrow, we're going to have a chat. I videotaped it. So anyway. Verizon. There we go. Wait a minute. What did Nikki say? Verizon sucks. You betcha. This is what's been going on every single freaking show. And they're telling me everything's fine. And it never, I mean, I've done 2 shows a week for 2 years. I don't have this happen the rest of the time, but they came out, rewired everything, and this is what I got. No, it's not the streaming platform. It is Verizon 100%. Never happened before till they fixed everything. So, yep. I'm so frustrated. Okay, but regulator, I should regulate when they show up. Oh my God. All right. So, just so annoying. Anyway, change your, there is no, oh, wait a minute. Change your, cracked under, I don't know. They just rewired everything. There's no way to there's no way to do it. There's no way. It's the whole system coming down, and yeah. So, can you hear me now? No. Oh, so anyway. So anyway, I guess I should end the show before it happens twice. But I told you that we had the little freezing in the beginning, then we have the complete shutdown, and there we go. It's very, very annoying. And I can't have this happen every show. So when they show up tomorrow, I'm going to be home. I'm going to show them what's happening. And I'm like, this is not acceptable. I can't do live shows and have this happen every live show. I'm surprised I even got as far as I did with only a small freezing, and then at least got the rest of the show. So, but it just goes down. Then the whole, oh yeah, it's crazy. Oh, the screening is nil. That's interesting. AD says, my sister and I were used to be nannies back in the 90s, and I can tell you the screening process is nil. Well, what are you actually going to screen? It's very hard, especially when it comes down to young people. They haven't had a long life, and unless they've been in juvie and have a criminal record, which half the time isn't allowed to be even talked about, you go in there and go, I love babies, and that's pretty much it. So, oh Lord. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Great show. It was cool to see all these people here. Yeah, it went better than I thought, because I've had some bad experiences when it's gone public. Not you guys who are here, but I have had some interesting experiences before, which made it so unpleasant and questionable that I want to do that I decided to go Patreon only, because it does make it more peaceful. So again, click on that, $5 a month. It sounds like very little, but the enough, and I have enough supporters to keep the channel going. It does make a difference, because advertising, Let me tell you a little secret about advertising before I get killed again here. And if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe before I get knocked off by Verizon. But here's the way it works. Advertisers bid on whether they want to put advertising on your show or not. If you have a show with 1 million subscribers, they will bid for your show. So when I get an ad on my show, I get way, way less ads. I get lousier ads. I get very short, they get the big ones they actually pay higher for every one of the advertisements. It's kind of like the Super Bowl. If you have the Super Bowl, you might, an advertiser might have to pay what? $500,000 to get on the Super Bowl. But if you have some shabby little community show, the advertiser's like, well, I'll give you $10. That's what happens here. So, you think I'm getting the same advertising as somebody with 2 million? Oh, no. And do I get the same advertising as Court TV, News Nation? No. They don't even get demonetized. They just get whatever they want because the advertisers want their advertising on there. For me, they're like, you're a small educational channel. So that's why it's a struggle to keep the show going because people think you're making this like an ungodly amount of money and you're not. And you're working 40, 50 hours a week to put the shows together. And I want this to be here because it's an educational channel, but you're dealing with YouTube. So I have the YouTube advertising, which is it's there now, but it's better than it was last year. I can tell you that. And then I have my patrons who support me, and that helps bring up the income for the channel so that one can keep going. So, for the jukebox. Well, I will make sure. I think they're free now. I think I can see regulate right on YouTube. But thank you, Sarah. But that's the way it works. And so and then you just don't know. You can wake up one morning, your channel gets demonetized, your video gets demonetized, all kinds of crazy things. So it's not like you just took a job, you're getting paid, $100,000 a year, and you're going to work every day, and you go to, you're going to be there for 3 years. It's not like that. It's like every day you get up and wonder when you're going to get stabbed in the back next. But again, this has been. I started this during COVID, so it was helpful because at least it was like nobody's earning money. At least, well, some people work. My daughter was cop; she earned money, but there are many people lost their incomes during COVID, and it was a great time to start it because it was like, well, I'm already not making money. I can not make money in doing this, So, and for my ant farm, I might need one of those again. I kind of like ant farms. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So. Yeah, it's an interesting ride. It's not as easy as people think. You come. I do love doing the show, but I enjoy and I love doing the research because I've always liked crime scene analysis, and I get to do this every week on at least 1 or 2 more cases every week, and that's pretty exciting. And I like teaching, so it all goes together. But it also helps that the channel survives, and so I thank you all so much for that. Oh, Clarissa, thank you. Well, the name of the book for this case is, it's going to be linked below, but it is Circle of Fire by Joyce Eggington. Joyce Eggington, Circle of Fire. I thought it was a good book, by the way. And you know me, I'm kind of I'm pretty critical about YouTube shows and documentaries and books. And I'm sure people, feel the same way about my stuff. Because I certainly get those comments. Yeah. So, but there's good stuff out there, and I do like to promote things that I'm like, oh, that's actually good. So that's cool. And so I think I'm gonna wrap it up because I say I'm looking at how much more I'm gonna get screwed in this. Sky Ricky for my mouse. I had to buy, my mouse. Oh my God, my cat died. Thank you, Sky Ricky. My cat died after many years. He lived here with me for 10 years. And before that, he lived in my other house where he used to trip me down the stairs and try to kill me. But this is 1 floor, so he couldn't kill me here. Well, he still tried. But he's the worst cat ever. But anyway, but I lived with him for 10 years here, and they finally died. And I never saw mice here, except the pet mice we had. But all of a sudden, they were like mice. And they were like, I could hear them chewing on my furniture, and like in my bedroom going crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, what the heck? And I saw one little mouse, and I'm thinking it's one mouse. And then I looked it up, and it said, well, if you see a mouse out in the daytime and stuff, it's not one mouse, it's a whole pile of the suckers. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I've caught 11 mice. I've caught them in humane traps. I've driven them far away to other people's houses. But I caught 11, and now I haven't seen a mouse for 2 days. So I'm hoping that they're now moved on. But they were like eating up my bedroom. It was crazy. Oh, Aunt Deanie. Oh, you're so nice. I love you, Pat. You're less than a cup of coffee. Where are you buying your coffee? Great community. Thank you, Aunt Dean. You've always been wonderful. I so appreciate it. Oh, absolutely. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I hope to keep going. So this has turned out really nicely, more so than I expected. I just really wanted to do this case, and I'm like, what do you do when you're demonetized? I mean, it's like, just there's got to be some way to do it. So I decided I would take my chance on this tonight. So I thank you. You've just been absolutely fabulous, everybody, and awesome. What can I say? So I'm going to go eat because I'm really hungry. And I'll have to put some little notes in here, like when I freeze, don't give up. When I do this, don't give up. So you're nice, Sarah. I'm a rock star. I'm not sure. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Alyssa. You all guys are just so great. I don't even know what to say. I'm like blown away. And I feel a little less like a stripper this time than last time. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's nice. Ah, I caught the last half hour. Well, now you have to go back and start over again, but oh, that's nice. You love the community. That's great. I mean, that's what I hope. I don't like it when people get all, just, sometimes I'm on YouTube and I just see nasty stuff and people saying horrible things at each other. It's just not the way I want it. We don't always have to agree. You don't have to agree with me. You can think she's innocent. That's okay. What I'm trying to do is explain where as a profiler I come from and how I view this. Doesn't mean you have to agree. But I want to explain it too, because I'm hoping that anybody who wants to learn how to analyze and use logic and so on and so forth, and get some of that from somebody who is experienced. I'm hoping detectives, future detectives, anybody working criminal justice, or people just wanting to analyze that new boyfriend, they have something to work with. And not every profiler agrees on certain cases either. Not all detectives agree, and obviously not all juries agree, and not all. So it's not like life is so perfect that I can say, I'm never wrong. You should believe me 100%. Don't listen to anybody else, But the reason I explain things so much is because I want you to, at least if I tell you something, explain something, I want you to be able to go through the process of understanding what my explanation is. Then you can decide whether you think it's okay or not. When I give a profile into police, it's the same thing. I explain every single one of the pieces of evidence, why I think this evidence says this and this and this and this and this. They can read it and disagree with me, but at least I'm telling them how I came to every conclusion, not just, I'm criminal profiler Pat Brown and I say she's guilty because blah, blah, blah. How does that help? How does it allow somebody else to examine it and determine whether they're in agreement or not? So I think that's really important. And that's what I try to do in my shows. Oh, Harpa. Oh, thank you very much, Harper. I appreciate you think it's a great show, even with the Verizon issues. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you, Harper. That's just awesome. Okay, I keep trying to leave, but you're also nice. I like you all. And some people say, "Why, Pat Brown, you're not very professional because you keep laughing during your show." I'm like, I know it's a sad subject. It's a horrible subject, which is why I demonetized it, because when I was reading the book, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind here. It's horrifying. It's just so horrifying. That was probably the worst pictures in my head, because I've seen a lot of pictures of homicides. That picture was not a good one. And you just keep, no. So, but I simply can't work this many hours and do shows and be miserable during them. I have to have some sense of humor. So, thank you very much, Marjorie. I appreciate it. They're just fabulous. This is a nice crowd. I didn't expect such a wonderful crowd, to tell you the truth. I haven't seen too many horrible things go by. Maybe once a month or so, doing this kind of thing. Maybe, but again, I think I'm going to mostly with the things I know are going to be demonetized. I think that's a great way to be able to still give out that content, and um, and that will be the one opportunity for people who are not patrons to participate, and I can then support the channel at the same time, not losing money because I'm doing demonetized stuff. So yeah, I mean, maybe once a month is not a bad idea. But again, if I have something I think is something that YouTube isn't going to be nice about, so. Oh, and thank you very much, Kerry. So appreciative. I mean, whew, that's just great. I think maybe I do better doing this, and I know I probably would. I'd probably be better off economically doing all live shows. People have said that over and over, but I just haven't been comfortable doing that. And I do like having a community, and I think by doing it in the Patreon community, we still have that, where we get together a lot, and during the shows we get to know each other, because a lot of you here I don't know, but a lot of you here I do know, and so it has that feeling of community, as opposed to sometimes people do totally live shows with completely open to the public all the time. You don't know anybody. You're just like, whatever. you see names go by and you don't know who they are, and it's a different feeling. So I like having Patreon as a community, but this is fun because I'm meeting, there are new people who are coming in, and I do hope you'll join Patreon, because that's, I'm going to stick with that, except that maybe, yes, when I have a demonetized show, this will be a great way to do it, because yeah, it gives the public a chance to join in and see what I'm doing, and it also it does help the channel keep going. So yeah, I think I'll do that. That's really nice. Wait a minute, I don't know what that was. I've seen other people's live shows, and this was amazing. Oh, well, thank you. I mean, this is cool. I mean, this is what I'm hoping. If I do it once in a while, it will introduce people to the show. Yeah, and I do videos that aren't live. That's usually when news breaks. Then I do those because I don't have time to do live stuff. But it just all sort of depends. But yes, thank you all so much for being here. This has just been great. These good teasers. Okay, I guess they could be teasers for Patreon. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Alyssa, for saying that we have a great community for anyone considering joining. Yeah, I hope to keep that going. YouTube is a weird thing because you work from home and you work alone. And generally speaking, unless you're one of those people who has like 2 million subscribers and you have a whole studio and you got people working with you, but normally people do this on their own, and it can be very isolating, because you get up and you do your research, you check all kinds of stuff. And I have to say, one of the things that keeps us from being so isolating to me is having a community, because I like you guys. I mean, I'm actually getting to know you people as people, and not just, and I know that like Ken Maines, he went totally no comments on his channel, and I always thought, how do you do that where you never ever communicate with people? But now he's started another thing where he's got this, he's got a private community now, and I think he missed having interaction, because it is very isolating. And much as I love the analysis part, I also like the human people part. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I certainly appreciate that. Oh, I like this one. I enjoy your perspective and the personal touch you put into your vids. And I just want to say, I think it's important. And I do that for a reason, because I don't have all the experiences in the world. So there are things I can't relate to, but there are things I can, and there are experiences I've had through my work or through my personal life that I can offer. And I think that helps people understand things better. Just like when people tell me things that they've experienced and I have, I'm like, wow, that lets me know something, because I haven't been there. Haven't done that, don't know. So if they can tell me, I'm like, now I understand better. So if I can offer that, I will. So help me with the daddy issues. Oh, goodness. We do have Dear Profiler Pat. If you haven't been here before, you can check out Dear Profiler Pat, because some people like my advice. So I decided to do like a Dear Abby thing. I don't do it. I was trying to do it every week, but I can't get it in. But if you go to my playlists, there are different playlists, and there's, there's the case file list, there's the hangouts, and then there's Dear Profiler playlist. And you can see if there's a topic that interests you as far as advice goes. And it's my advice from both my personal life and my profiling life put together. So, for whatever that's worth. And sent me a message. Okay, I will do that. Oh, that's cool. I think it's extremely helpful, your perspective on psychopathy and narcissism. It's helping me in my personal life. Well, professional life is one thing. Personal life is bigger than that one thing. And so we all deal with humans and human nature every day, whether we're working as profilers or detectives or anything like that. There are family, there are neighbors, there are workmates. I mean, they're everywhere. And they're, and total strangers as far as that goes. So we have to always, the more we understand human behavior, the more we can avoid getting ourselves in bad situations, get taken advantage of, and far worse. So yeah, I'm glad I can help in regular life, because again, it's nice to have the channel do two things. One, help detectives, people of future going into crime scene analysis, but just living life and getting through life. We all are profilers. We're all profilers. We may suck at profiling, but we are profilers. We meet somebody, we profile. We get to know somebody, we profile. That's what we do. We analyze what we see. That's what we're doing. I mean, it's not some fancy thing that's all academic. It's what we do. And that's how we then maneuver our way through life. But if it's good to be a better profiler than a sucky profiler. So I hope you're becoming better profilers. And that's what I hope. So, all right. So anyway, yes, I'm leaving now. I really am. I'm going to cook my dinner. Okay. Well, I'm glad you stayed through my two little Verizon things. I appreciate that. It was a good experience tonight. I'm happier than I thought I'd be. So, and I think this case is super interesting. I'm glad I did it. So anyway, thank you for being here. Again, if you're still here at the end and you've never subscribed, subscribe. You don't always have to become a patron, but hey, subscribing helps too. And check the playlist, because there's so many cases and different things on them. And people sometimes forget to check playlists. Check the playlist. Thank you all for being here. You all were wonderful and very supportive of the channel. I appreciate it. Bye.